Welcome to Fight Club 24/7. My name's Johnny Rashman. Right, let's get straight into it. Last week, Tommy Fury defeated Jake Paul, just like I said. Right, I've left it for a week. I wanted to analyse things. I wanted to see people's reactions. And I put a lot into this. I'm not going to lie. Right, if you followed me, you'll understand how much I've put into it. Because I've been very consistent all along about this. Right, I've been very consistent about Jake Paul's level. I've not bought into the hype. I've not had any agendas against anyone. I've called this for what it is, which is a guy who's come off YouTube, who's done extremely well to compete with MMA fighters and even get in the ring with a professional boxer. I take my hat off. That is hard. That's not easy, right? But when you're going to blur the lines and you're going to talk about WBC rankings and talk about being a world champion, I'm not going to put up with that. I feel it's important that people in boxing and media outlets report it for what it is. Now, there's too many people, for me, right, playing pretend boxer with Jake Paul. Why? Because there was agendas. They either wanted to interview him, they had to stroke his ego, maybe they had kids who were followers of his, maybe they've got fighters who are people involved in boxing who they want to be promoted by Jake. Maybe they want to do business with him. There's a lot of agendas out there and a lot of disrespect and hate for Tommy Fury. And it was very nasty towards the end. It was. Right now, you might not be a fan of Tommy Fury. You might not watch him. You might not like him. But the hate and the abuse he was getting, right, was, for me, it didn't sit right. Now, I'm not a Tommy Fury fan from a boxing point of view, right? I respect what he's done. He's a nice kid, right? I don't hate on him. People were saying, oh, you lick his arse and you don't start talking about him. It's not about that. It's about, I would have done it with any boxer, right? It's about showing you the levels involved with boxing and not being manipulated and conned by a content creator who just wants the money. Not interested in the professional boxing career. He's not, right? History has shown you this. If he was bothered to have a professional boxing career, he would be fighting 6 times a year, especially with the lack of experience he has. He's got money. He's good. Okay, there might not be pay-per-view fights at first, right? I understand that. But if he was that talented and he had that much belief about being a world champion, he could give it a few years and build it up and get the wins and fight the journeyman, get the experience, get the rounds in, right? He didn't do that because it's all for money. And I understand it. Fair play to him, right? Fair play. But when you're going to mock boxing and people in the game and you're going to say you train more than professional boxers, or has professional boxers done what I've done in 7 fights? Well, no, because they don't have the luxury of having a ready-made following, mate. You're not famous because you're a boxer. You're not. You're famous because you've come off YouTube. You're a content creator and you're very good at that. And you're a smart man. And he's a successful man. He's no one's mug. He's a calculated person, right? Every decision is calculated. He is no one's idiot. I know people like to think that, but you don't have the success he has with being an idiot, right? But it was all manipulation, this. It was all manipulation. And I felt someone had to say something. And it could have gone wrong for me. Right? Because if Tommy Fury would have lost, I would have got abused to the end of time. And I would have put up with it. I put myself out there. I've got strong opinions. If you're on YouTube, you have to be prepared that you're going to get abused and you're going to get insulted at some point. Right? For me, getting trolled and things like that doesn't have any difference to me. It doesn't, because I've got a sarcastic sense of humour. There's nothing you can say online that's going to insult me, call me fat, ugly, tell me to die. It doesn't matter. If you've got an issue, come and see me say face to face. It's a bit different. But when you're going to say something online, you've got a picture of a cat and 2 followers, and you're going to insult me, I ain't going to listen to that, mate. I'll just be sarcastic. It doesn't mean anything to me. So I ain't that guy who's going to be affected by someone trolling them. But I understand that people do. And if it gets to levels where you're getting millions of people, like Tommy Fury, right? Because he was getting absolutely abused, and it didn't sit right for me. And that's why I thought, you know what? Instead of going against the grain, instead of going against who everyone's picking and high-fiving Jake Paul and all this, no, I'm going to go against someone who, I'm not going to say being bullied, because obviously he's a Fury, he's not going to get bullied, but it was bullying to an extent, right? It was a bit nasty towards the end, to be quite honest with you. A lot of people bought into the hype. If you watch my pre-fight predictions, I explained, I broke it down. It really wasn't hard to break down. Okay, might not have knocked him out in 4 rounds or whatever, fine, right? Okay, I didn't get that right. But watch the breakdown. I told you, right, that he falls in with his punches. He's open for an uppercut. You can see with the footage, when he's throwing a shot, when he throws a jab, he looks down, closes his eyes when he punches. That will get you hurt. Very lucky he didn't get hurt, because if you watch when he throws a shot or when he throws a jab, even when he knocked him down, he throws a jab and then he looks to the ground. Or when he's getting backed up, he looks to the ground. When you're a professional boxer, right, the reason why you spar in the lead up to fights is to condition yourself. Right? It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a professional boxer, if you've just started boxing. If you've not sparred for 6, 7, 8 months or however long it's been, or even 2 months, right? When you first spar, your body's it's not going to be conditioned, right? It's like if you're in a shower, if water flickers in you, you react. If someone slaps you, you react. When you watch professional boxers on fight night, when they get hit and they stay there. They don't get hit and look at that and look to the ground and everywhere and not looking, right? They get hit, bang, that. Or they roll, but they're always looking at you. Jake Paul, as appointed pre-fight, always looks to the ground, and Tommy, bang, was whipping the uppercut and was open for it. As I say, when he falls in with the right hand, Tommy slid back, came back with 3s and 4s. When you're fighting aging MMA grapplers, right, they're not going to come back at you. You can get away with throwing your right hands and missing and them not capitalising on it. So that gives you a false sense of security, because you might land it in the end and knock the person out against an MMA grappler or a YouTuber or a basketball player, right? You might miss consistently, but then you might have that one that lands it. But you're not getting paid. They're not capitalising it. So when you're missing, it's like, all right, I've missed. Okay, I can land the other one. Different when you're in there with someone who, when you do miss, bang, he comes back and he's going to the body and he's coming back with double jabs, right hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, uppercut, body. You know, there's all these things. There's so many shots that you can let go. You know, so many combinations in boxing, right? So it's a different ball game when you're boxing someone and you're like, right, I can't throw this right hand because if I do, he's going to come back. And he was getting hurt, Jake. He was getting hurt a lot. Believe me, he was getting hurt a lot in that fight, right? And it was boxing fundamentals. That's what won him the game. As I said, too many people were buying into the hype, the Anthony Taylor fight, the Tommy's not, the resumes. You know, this was more than resumes. Tommy is a novice pro. I've never said he's going to be a world champion. I've never said that. I've always compared it to this fight, which is against a YouTuber. Right, but he's certainly not as bad as what everyone was portraying Tommy. As I said, he's got a nice, sharp jab. No one was saying that pre-fight. I was. Watch it. I was saying it. Right? So let's talk about the fight. I want to talk about the build-up to it, the week in Saudi. And listen, it got people talking. It was a big event. You have to give him tremendous credit, Jake Paul, for getting people talking like that. You know, I take my hat off to him. But, you know, he might look like a fighter, he might have the money of a fighter, he might have gloves, he might have the kit, he might come across as a fighter. He is not a real fighter. He's not. He's a privileged guy who has dedicated himself, he was trained, fair enough, and has got better, right? He's got a lot better than he probably should have ever done, to be quite honest with you. You know, strong guy. As I've always said, there's power. I've never been convinced about the power because Tommy took all the shots, the right hands, took him, never moved him. Okay, a left hook caught him at one point. Okay, the jab, put him down, call it a slip or whatever. We'll talk about that later. Right? But he never got hit in the fight once. Everyone was saying this big power puncher is going to knock him out. It was Jake Paul who was hurt. Right? But Jake Paul talking pre-fight at the weigh-in, he's saying, I'm a real dog, I'm a killer, I'm none of this acting shit, I'm from Ohio, we're real dogs. Mate, you're an actor from Disney. What are you talking about? You're not a real dog. You were literally an actor, weren't you? Weren't you on Disney? You know, and it's just what you can. It's frustrating because you know what he's doing. I know what he's doing, right? It's so obvious, like completely obvious what he's doing, and he just talks to get traction. He mentions Canelo's name, so people search Canelo, Jake Paul, Dana White. He's attached himself to fighters' pay, you know, or not because he's bothered about fighters' pay, right? Just because it grows his brand. Yes, he might be bothered about fighters' pay, but he's more bothered about his brand than the fighters' pay first. Believe me. Now, yes, he's creating opportunities for fighters now, but let me tell you, right, it's the brand first before the fighters. So he's linked himself to that, so people talk about it. And you can see what he's doing, and you can see that he studies fighters and how they talk. You can tell he's watched Conor McGregor and he's a Conor McGregor fanboy. It's easy to spot a mile off. He tries to copy him. He tries to come across like him. He's just not Conor McGregor. I mean, what was he saying after the fight? Judge me by my losses, not my wins. That's from the Wolf of Wall Street. Clearly just taking that. Just come out with your own stuff, mate. Be original. Stop copying people. Like, I don't understand why you would want to copy people. Be yourself. He's just this character, and you're not that. You're not, right? You've done very well to come from YouTube, right? As I said, I take my hat off, but you aren't that guy, mate. You're not going to be a world champion. You're not going to have a professional boxing career where you get to any type of level. You're just cashing out and getting money, right? And fair enough, okay, but let's call it for what it is. I'll enjoy it more and I'll get involved more with it, but I'm not going to sit here and play pretend boxer when I know the game. I've said it many times. I'm around fighters. I watch professional fighters spar. I'm not going to be mugged off and be conned, right? That's just not going to happen. And unfortunately, it happened with this with a lot of people. But going back to the fight, right? Going back to it, the bell goes straight away. Jake comes out like this. Just, I mean, what is that? Just hold your fucking hands up like this. Just like this. Tommy comes out, bang, whips him with a jab, right? And watch the fight. Look, as I say, turn the commentary off, turn the sound off, and you'll see. You'll see it was just very obvious what was happening. Tommy was jabbing him. Was as soon as Jake would miss with the right hand, he'd slide back, then he'd come back in. You call that a 2-phase attack or 3-phase attack. So Manny Pacquiao was great at it. So what happens is you might throw a combination, step back, throw another 1-2, step back, might throw a 3-punch combination, depending on your hand speed. Some fighters just bang, go really at it. Some fighters they might just throw one shot, but they'll come in and out. Manchester boxers are notorious for it. They have that fitness, they have that style where if you're coming in and you miss, they'll come straight back at you. Or if they've thrown a combinations, they'll get out and then bang, they'll be back at you. They're not just walking around and taking a break. They're on you all the time, right? And Tommy Fury was doing that to an extent. Should have done it more, but I think he was probably worried about his gas tank and things like that. But as soon as Jake missed, capitalising, right? He'd get back out of the way and then come back with the 3s and 4s. And he would hurt Jake. Jake was hurt. Believe me, he was hurt. And he just didn't know what to do. He couldn't get past the jab. He didn't have the head movement, didn't have the fundamentals, didn't have the ability, and didn't have the footwork to get past Tommy's jab. Like, he was struggling. All he was doing was just throwing that overhand right and power punches. He wasn't setting things up. You don't see him set things up. You see him just trying to knock people out. And what happens when you fight fighters who aren't boxers is you might get away with knocking them out, right? And that gives you a false sense of security because you're not learning to set your shots up because you're knocking them out with one shots. Where when you fight pro boxers and journeymen, which a lot of Jake Paul's followers were disrespecting, oh, journeymen, look at Tommy Fury's opponents, oh, journeymen, they've lost 50 fights, they're bums and all this. And it's like, you know how many fights they've actually had? And you know how many talented fighters they've been in with weight classes above at short notice, and they've survived fights. Do you know what I mean? That's not an easy thing to do, right? And Jake, I think, had a false sense of security, and I think he thought he could go in there and just land that right hand. It's a different ball game, mate. When you're fighting a boxer and they've got the body mechanics of a boxer, right? Different ball game, because they'll make you miss and they'll make you pay. Right, and that's what was happening consistently throughout the fight. Now, Jake caught Tommy with a left hook probably twice in the fight, right? And, okay, fine, he caught him with it, but what are we looking at here? Are we going to give someone a fight because he landed a left hand? Like, watch it for what it was. Tommy scored him. For me to give Jake Paul 2 rounds is very generous. Very generous, even with a knockdown, very generous, right? How that judge called it a split decision, they need to not work in boxing again, right? It's an absolute disgrace, What's going to happen about that? Nothing. Should we just pretend that never happened? Split decision for Jake Paul? What were you watching? Get that judge out of boxing. Never again, right? Because for me, there's dodgy as anything that, because you don't know. Are they betting on split decisions, or Why are they doing that? Right? Because that stinks. That is, you can't watch that fight and give Jake Paul the victory. It's an absolute disgrace. Disgrace to the sport. And that judge needs to be kicked out of the game. And any judge who behaves like that, you can't have him in the game. They're a poison. Right? And it comes from the top. And this is what I say about boxing. It's the Wild West. It's poison. You've got poison in the game, right? Putting these decisions out. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Right? Didn't sit right with me. But as the fight was going on, it was just clear Jake just didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. And that's why he should have fought more fights against boxers to prepare himself. You can only learn so much in sparring. You might say, I'm sparring the best world champions. But yeah, I'm sure you're paying them a load of money. And I'm sure they're probably taking it a bit easy on you. Right? They're not going to knock you out. They want the money. Right? I'm sure they've got a nice thing going on. Right? So I just think his ego's been stroked. And I generally thought he thought he could just bomb him out, and it didn't prove to be the case. The last round and the knockdown, right? It was a jab. Look at the face of him. If you look at Jake Paul's face, looking down when he throws it. He's not even looking up. He just threw it, and it caught Tommy square on. Was it a slip? I think it was a bit of a slip as well, because the reaction from him, that wasn't a reaction from a punch. He got jabbed, right? It's just a jab. It's not going to really shake you, right? But if you look at the legs do like a slip. That was a slip, but the punch landed. It was. Look at it. Look at how the legs. It's like he slipped on a banana skin or something. Like, that's not a reaction of getting hit. When you get hit, you fall back. You go down. You don't slip up like that. So I think it was a slip, but the punch landed. But it was a knock. You have to call it a knockdown. You do, right? But like, so what, you think that fight was close because of that? I mean, and the point deductions and all of that, that's a load of nonsense. It was a comfortable victory. And the rematch, it will happen. Of course it will happen. Look at the numbers they did. What was it, 750,000 or 790,000 pay-per-view buys? I mean, that's astronomical. Unbelievable. Fair play. So, of course, the rematch is going to happen. Is it going to be more competitive? No. Do I think Tommy will knock him out? If he's going in there to knock him out, yes. Right? And as I say, what I mean by that is, can I say Tommy was 100% going in there to knock Jake out? I don't know, mate. I said it beforehand. And I know people who might not understand the sport might say, how can you fix a fight and all that? I'm not saying that predicting rounds or predicting when to punch each other and they're going to get knocked down. As I've always said, you can go into a boxing ring and not look to knock your opponent out. You can do it, right? You can take the gas off. You can take the foot off the gas, right, when you know your opponent's hurt. So do I think that was going on at some stages? Maybe. I don't know. I can't be 100% sure. I think Tommy should have really taken him out in 3-4 rounds. But there's a lot of pressure on him. There was. And you've got to, when you're fighting a scrappy fighter, I've told you the punches can be awkward because they don't throw their shots traditionally. They throw it awkward, it's scrappy, and he's going in with his head and his body and everything, and he's dirty. And, you've got to be careful, right, of that, which Tommy was. But he won the fight. Clearly, he won the fight, and it is what it is. So the rematch will happen, right? It'll have to happen. But I don't understand the selling point of it. Jake Paul can sell, and he will do, but we all saw it. All the people who thought Jake was going to knock him out, and are you still going to think that in the next fight? Because let me tell you something, for Jake to have a better shot of winning this fight, he needs years, he needs experience, he needs 8-10 fights against journeymen. He needs to be able to set his shots up. He needs to be able to fight fighters who aren't just going to be knocked out straight away, but who aren't going to put that much pressure on him that he can't get his shots off. That's why you fight as a novice pro. You learn your trade. You don't look at the resumes. It's irrelevant when you're fighting your first 7-8 fights. You need to get the rounds. You need to get the pressure out of the way. You need to learn on your shots, what you're working in the gym. That's what you build on as when you're a fighter, right? And Jake needs that. He's not really had that. He's had that against MMA fighters, but if you're talking about being a world champion and being a WBC ranking, don't fight MMA fighters and don't fight YouTubers, right? So I feel, as I said all along, it's the career he's not going to have a professional boxing career. He's just going to fight MMA fighters, and he might fight Tommy Fury again. But he's not going to get a level where he's fighting world-class fighters and being in rankings. It's just not going to happen, right? Because he'll get hurt. He'll get hurt, I'm telling you. He fights someone his own size, because Tommy wasn't his own size, by the way. Tommy's really a light heavyweight, right? If he fights someone his own size, he will get put to kip. He'll get knocked out viciously, right? And no one wants to see him hurt, right? We don't. No one wants to see the kid hurt, but you've got to be extremely careful. What next for Tommy Fury? He's in a difficult situation because where can he go? You know, you're going to fight a world-class boxer for a fraction of what you're going to earn against fighting a YouTuber. You know, so he's in a difficult situation, but he's too good for YouTuber boxing. He is. He can't go on Misfits cards. He can only go on those cards if he's deliberately not looking to knock the opponent out, right? Because he's only going to improve. You know, he's already got basic fundamentals. He's got decent skills, but he needs to improve, and he will improve, right? So if he's going to improve, how can he go back to YouTuber boxing? It's just not going to work, is it? Maybe he can fight MMA fighters as well, and you know, famous MMA fighters that'll gain traction. But again, you know, there's only so much he can do. You can't blame him chasing the money. He has to chase the money. Of course he does. I feel like Tommy can have some type of successful career, right? Okay, he's not going to be a world champion. He might not be a European champion, but you know, look at Conor Benn. You can manufacture fighters' careers who haven't got an amateur pedigree but have a big following. You can, right? You can manufacture them. That's what promoters do. So he can have a professional career, but he's going to have big problems because, you know, he's got that much money. Boxing's a hard game. When you're going to the gym and you're preparing to fight a killer and you're not making that money and you're used to that money now, it's going to be hard for him to go back to boxing. It is. It's going to be very, very hard. So I think he'll fight Jake Paul again. I think he'll have maybe fight Logan Paul, maybe he'll go down that road. But I do think he won't have a long professional boxing career, but I do think he will have a professional career and he'll fight pro fighters and whatever level he gets to, right? And he's not an absolute bum that people say he is. He's not a complete waste of time. Like, he has decent skills, right? As I say, not a world-class talent, not going to be a world champion, but so what? Most boxers don't become world champions, but he's got a name now, got a load of money. He can have a career. People will want to fight him. What next for Jake Paul? Well, he'll just come out with the same stuff, put the content out, and he'll just manipulate it. What did he say afterwards? He was injured. He didn't feel well. You weren't saying that a few weeks ago, were you, mate? You were saying, what were you saying? You're going to kill Tommy Fury. Is that what you said? You know, excuses coming out. It's a bit like, even if he was ill, right, which he may have been, still, you're going to come out with that excuses, really? I just think people need to have a word with him. It's hard because he makes money and people want money. So the people around him, are they really going to be truthful to him? Or are they going to think, well, he's competing, you know, let the gravy train continue? Because if I was involved with him, if I was his dad or if I was his manager, if I was his advisor, I would think very clearly about putting him in with professional boxers because he's got money. You know, he doesn't need to do this, right? And if it goes wrong for him, no good having money if you can't talk or you've got health problems. Do you know what I mean? So no one wants to see that happen to him, but he will get hurt if he fights professional boxers and they are going to knock him out. He will get hurt, right? Because he's had a false sense of security, I think. I think he's, as I mentioned, he is a bit deluded. And when you're someone as successful as him, you've got yes men around you all day. Yes, Jake, yes, Jake, yes, Jake, yes, Jake, yes, Jake, yes, Jake, yes, Jake. No one's probably going to tell him the truth. So when he's in the gym and all professional boxers are high-fiving him, you know, he's thinking, yeah, I am a dog. You know, I can compete with these fighters. I am. And I don't think people are being honest with him. I give him a lot of credit for getting in there. I do. I mean, I'd take my hat off to him. I really do. And tough. He is tough. Surprised me a bit, you know, tough. And he's improved so much. Really has for a YouTuber. You know, really, really has. But he's not going anywhere in professional boxing. But it'll carry on. Of course, it'll carry on because the money's there. And it will carry on till eventually people lose interest. And I feel as I always said, there's a limited life with this. You know, it can't go on for so long. And I feel he'll probably have, I don't know, 4 or 5 more fights and he'll pack it in. He'll do something else. Right? He'll go to MMA and do something there or whatever he wants to do. But he's not going anywhere in professional boxing. That's not going to happen. Right. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the fight? Were you surprised by it? Did you think Jake would win? Do you think Jake will win a rematch? Do you want to see the rematch? Like, comment, subscribe, let me know.